Hey guys! So this week we are going to be studying Johannes Brahms, and I'm going to flip the camera around and I am going to do a quick overview of this while my kids are getting a bath. So, I am going to have this listening map sent to you guys. I have to download the file to my laptop and then I will get that sent out. I have to figure out how to do that. It's been a crazy week. So, have this listening map sitting by you because in a few moments I'm going to point out a few things to you all. And then later when you play the piece, you will use that listening map to follow along. Okay, so Johannes Brahms, we'll talk about his story, his time period, the time period that he lived in, and his music. So, I have my notes here that I'm following off of. Okay, so he was born in 1833. Just a few years after Beethoven died. He was born in Germany and he had one brother and one sister. His mother was a seamstress and his father was a musician. Perhaps this is the reason why Johannes could play instruments such as the cello, horn, piano at a very young age. Johannes loved music and he even invented his own system for writing notes down on a page. His piano teacher once complained that Johannes could be such a good player, but he will not stop his never-ending composing. Remember, from a previous week, we learned that composing is when you write music. So by the time he was 10, he was playing in public, but not in churches or for rich people like Beethoven had done. Instead, Brahms played in places such as restaurants and theaters. When he wasn't playing music, he had a variety of hobbies such as reading novels or reading poetry or perhaps reading folk tales. He really liked to read. As he grew up, Brahms did not surround himself with rich people, secretly hoping that they could provide him with a job. Instead, Brahms surrounded himself with other musicians. This greatly impacted his work, and when he was 17, he worked with a violinist from Hungary who introduced him to gypsy-style music. That relationship ended suddenly when Brahms fell asleep in the middle of someone else's performance. That was embarrassing. However, his friend from Hungary did influence one of Brahms' most famous works, the Hungarian Dances. This tune was so popular that many years later, the American inventor Thomas Edison visited Brahms in Austria and asked if he could record him playing it on the piano. And I'm going to send a YouTube link and you can listen to this recording that Brahms played on the piano for Thomas Edison. And just a note, when you're listening to that, since we're not in class together, so when you're listening to that piece, you're going to listen to how the speed or the tempo changes constantly. Okay, and you might find it hard to stay in your seats when you listen to it. So I'll have that link along with the link that Miss Amy already posted. So yeah, I'll explain once we get to the end. Okay, so you'll get to listen to that piece that he played for Thomas Edison. Okay, so let's go on. Another friendship that was important in Brahms' life was that of a married couple, Robert and Clara Schumann. Robert Schumann was a composer. Remember, that means he would have written music. a pianist and also an influential music critic who wrote about Brahms and helped to make him famous. He even proclaimed in one of his articles that Brahms was the next Beethoven. This made Brahms a little stressed out, to say the least, because he didn't think he was as great as Beethoven was. Robert's wife, Clara, was one of the most gifted piano players of her time. In fact, she was considered a piano virtuoso, which means she had an amazing gift of skill and exceptional ability. Clara would often play Brahms' compositions at her popular concerts, which also helped to boost his popularity. After Clara's husband passed away, Brahms remained close to Clara and was a supportive friend. If Beethoven was known for his fiery temper, Brahms was known for his genuine friendships. One other characteristic Brahms was known for was his unrelenting perfectionism. He would write and rewrite his compositions, finally perfecting them. He also tended to destroy any of his compositions that he didn't feel were perfect. How sad that so many of his amazing works ended up destroyed by his own hands. Johannes passed away at the age of 63 as a beloved musician and composer of the Romantic period. His most notable works include one you have probably heard since you were a baby, and it's called Lullaby. I will add this one. You don't have to listen to it, but I will add that in there. So I will also send that link for Lullaby. So that was a pretty famous one. And okay, so now on to the time period, Romantic. Let's talk for a moment about the time period Brahms lived in, which was the Romantic period. What do you recall about this period from last week's lesson? Do you remember? In the Romantic period, people really longed for the good old days. The Industrial Revolution was happening, and many people no longer worked in the open fields. Instead, they flocked to the crowded cities and they worked in the factories. Rather than order and structure like in the classical period, the music became more about emotions and feelings, freedom of expression, and passion. The piano became popular because it could produce both loud and soft sounds. Remember, we talked about with the piano, you can press really hard to make it loud, or you could press the keys very soft to make soft sounds. And then a few minutes ago, I mentioned that Brahms liked to read. Okay, well, Brahms studied the composers who came before him, especially from the classical period. You could probably ask him any question about Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, or any composer that came before him, and he would know the answer because he just read so much about them. Okay. In other words, being a composer of the Romantic period didn't mean that the beautiful works of other time periods would be tossed away. Instead, composers of the Romantic period would be inspired by the works of the Classical period and the Baroque period, and so on, building upon what previous artists had created. Brahms loved Beethoven and even had a marble statue of him looking down on the spot where he composed. Brahms collected rare copies of Mozart's music, and he studied the works of Handel and Bach, finding inspiration in their art. Now that we know more about Johannes Brahms' life and about the Romantic period of music, you are going to listen to this piece that I will also send Miss Amy or Miss Caitlin the link of. And this link, no, I already sent this link. Okay, I am so sorry. I'm so confused. Miss Amy sent the link yesterday, maybe. And that link, you are going to use the listening map, okay? So I will actually get on Band where she posted the link, and I will put in the comments that that is the piece that you're going to use the listening map with, okay? So now if you want to use get out your listening map, okay? So this right here, we're just gonna talk about it for a minute before we're done here. Okay, so let's preview it so we know what to look for, okay? There are a few parts that are repeated over and over during this piece. If you look at your listening map, what do you see that is repeated over and over? Which square do you see the most of on your listening map? And also, I forgot to mention that when a few parts are repeated over and over, that is called a theme. So if you look at your listening map, you will notice a lot of one color, and that is well, on mine it looks more orangish, so like the orangish reddish squares. Okay, so those red squares, or theme 1, is repeated 8 times, okay? The red boxes, which is theme 1, theme number 1, is very royal sounding. It sounds like something you might hear when a king or queen enter the room. That's why it is represented by a crown. So on each of those red squares, you will see the crown. Okay, that's theme 1, and it's royal sounding, okay? However, did you notice that squares 4 and 13 have a crown wearing a disguise? So if you look down at square number 4 and square number, I'm looking at this backwards, 13, there's a little disguise over 4 and 13. Okay, that is because Brahms actually turned the music upside down, so that when it usually goes up in pitch, he turned it upside down so it goes down. Okay, so when you're listening, notice when you get to squares 4 and 13, it's not going to go up in pitch. Instead, it's going to go down. However, the cadence or beats are the same, represented by the dots and lines on those red squares on 4 and 13. So the pitch changes on 4 and 13, but the cadence or the beats stay the same. So it just has here that if you're familiar with this certain method, it would be T, 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 ta, ta, T, 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 ta, ta. So you could clap out that beat if you wanted to, because it will be used throughout this piece. And you can also listen for that in areas other than theme 1 if you like. So it's T, 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 ta, ta, T, 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 ta, ta. So there's an animal that I see running around the map. Can you guess which one I'm thinking of? Do you see an animal on there? It's black. It's in black. And that is the horse. When we get to the squares with the horse in them, you will hear something played by instruments that sounds like galloping. Okay, I want you to listen for an instrument called the triangle. Okay, so what squares have triangles? You can look down on your listening map and you will see that squares 4 and 5, 18, 26, and 29 have triangles. Okay, and remember, I think we listened to a piece either the first or second week, maybe the first week, and we had to listen for that triangle. It was very soft. We really had to listen for it. What does it sound like? Sounds like a bell ringing. So pay close attention to the triangle and notice if it gets louder as the piece goes on or if it gets softer as the piece goes on. Okay, so now, let me see if there's, okay, so now you're going to listen to the third movement of Brahms' Fourth Symphony, and you're going to use the listening map when you listen to the third movement of Brahms' Fourth Symphony, and that is the link that Miss Amy posted. Today is Monday. I believe she posted it yesterday in Band. Sunday. She posted it Sunday on the Band app. So what she posted on Sunday, that is the Brahms Fourth Symphony. You're going to use your listening map for that. And just, I want to say that's all. I'm going to add if I can get this, I'm really bad with files and sending them and this and that because I don't feel the need to send you this entire file. So I'm going to send you the listening map. I'm going to try to send you this because this is kind of helpful to use with your listening map because it actually tells you what is happening there. So it kind of makes it easier to follow along, and it has the timestamp. So if you kind of like get confused and wonder where you are, just look at the timestamp and it'll tell you where you are. You'll see over here the different themes over here. So I will try to include that also. And then something else that you guys can just skim over. I'm not going to go over this right now because I didn't want this to be too long, but parts of a symphony. So the different parts of a symphony are the first movement, the second movement, the third movement, and the fourth movement. And you can read this page together, what each movement means. At the bottom here, it says there's a bit of a tradition in classical music that you only clap after a piece has finished. You never clap in between the movements because sometimes between movements the music stops, and so you never clap in those transitions. You wait to the very, very end of the piece to clap. So we have that, and then this art history cycle 2 will also be in there. So that includes the composers and the artists that we did. And if for some reason I can't pick and choose which pages I send, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do that. But if I can't, I'm just going to send the whole file, and you guys can just read what I read together again. So, I'm making sure that's all. I think it is. Okay, that is all. And I'm sorry if this wasn't the best video or setup, but I had to hurry up and come on here while I had a moment of peace while the kids got a bath. I miss you all. I really miss it's really easier just to get the kids ready and leave the house and go to community day, all this virtual stuff, because we have other things that we have to do virtually with Awana and dance, and it really is easier just to pick the kids up and leave the house, I think. So enjoy these weeks off, and hopefully once all this craziness is over, even if it's not till the end of April, maybe we all can get together and just play or something like that, even if the CC year is over. We'll have to do something like that. All right, guys, thanks very much. Bye.